Sales, I think, is a very humbling experience.
Yes.
Um, it's a very humbling experience because you realize very quickly how many things you suck at,
Hmm.
right? And I went immediately into medical device sales,
Hmm.
which is all in the field in person, and
Hmm.
I'm dealing with surgeons, like I'm speaking
Hmm.
with physicians. So it wasn't like this thing where I was like, I was like a car, nothing against car salesmen. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like I was in a position where I could just kind of like say whatever I want.
There are people who are listening to this or thinking about starting something, thinking about doing something, and they're sort of reticent, right? They're just kind of sitting back and sort of collecting data and that kind of thing. You guys decide to go out and start this coaching company. Talk a little bit about the mindset behind that.
Yeah. I'll be honest, Mike, this business model is one of the lowest risk, lowest barrier to entry business models out there
Yeah.
for anybody looking to generate 5 to 10K a month, start an online business that can be managed completely remotely, and who's always wanted to get in real estate but didn't have the capital. And I'm not just saying that like it. So what we have every landlord or property owner do is sign an addendum with us, right? So this is an additional document on top of the lease that says, "Hey, you know that I'm running this as a short-term rental," right? So like I have legal permission to do this. But on top of that, I include terminology in that addendum that says if for whatever reason legally I no longer have the capability to do this, the lease is void, right?
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Vince Villani, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I'm super excited for our time together. And like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So, with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about the amazing things you're doing in teaching people how to get into the Airbnb business. And actually, I think you're also helping people that are in the Airbnb business get better, right?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Mike, first off, I'm looking forward to this conversation a lot. I just want to give a quick note to everybody listening. Mike has built something pretty substantial here. The audience here is growing exponentially, and Mike, you should be really proud of what you've got going on
Thank you.
here. If you could do us a favor, please go ahead and leave Mike a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on.
Thank you.
I've already done that on Apple, so please come and join me. But with regard to your question, I'm from a little town in Pennsylvania called Bethlehem in the Lehigh Valley.
Mhm.
And, over the years, Mike, I was working a 9 to 5, just like all of us, right? I was in the world of corporate, and I always wanted to, kind of achieve that financial freedom, so to speak, and have the time and location freedom. And like most of your listeners, I thought that the path to that was real estate, like real estate investing. And like here's the thing, Mike, is like how most 9 to 5ers they want to get into real estate investing and they
Mhm.
want to like land their first property. Maybe they already did, but what ends up happening most of the time is that one property, they spend all of their money, their capital out of their savings on it, and it only cash flows a few $100s a month, and it doesn't actually make a huge dent in their lifestyle. And then they're stuck kind of waiting another 4 or 5 years to get another property.
True.
And ultimately, it's this really slow game for financial freedom, sets them up nicely for wealth, but it does nothing right now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happened to me was, what I do is I teach people how to make several $1,000s a month in cash flow by leveraging other people's properties as Airbnbs. And it didn't always start out like that for me. As a matter of fact, I landed my first real estate investment property when I was in my mid 20s. I was fortunate, and I was like, all right, man, this is it. This is the big leagues. I'm going to buy my real estate investing properties, and
I'm
then
on
from
my
here
way.
Yeah, here on out, I'm the next, whatever, Grant Cardone or big real estate mogul, this and
Ooh, I
that.
love it. That's cool.
And what ended up happening, Mike, was the property was a disaster, right? I
Oh.
shelled out all my savings in this property. It cash flowed next to nothing because anytime I actually made money on the property, it would just get dumped back into the expenses in the property. And at the end of the day, I had a property that was filled with so many headaches. I had a rodent issue and
Mm.
and bad tenants and doing all this stuff. And moral of the story is I realized that real estate investing, like buying a property, has a lot of really great long-term benefits,
Mhm.
right? You basically buy a piggy bank
Mhm.
and you get to crack that piggy bank down the line where you get most of the benefits. But the light bulb went off for me, which is like, okay, if I actually want to achieve time and location freedom now what I need is cash flow, not
Mhm.
necessarily just equity.
Mhm.
So that's when a good friend of mine introduced me to the idea of what's known as Airbnb arbitrage, right?
Mhm.
And what this is, it's a vehicle where instead of me having to purchase properties, I can leverage other people's properties. So I can go to a landlord who has a property available for rent, like a single family home, Mike. I can rent it from them. I can furnish it and list it as an Airbnb. And then I just cash flow the difference every single month. And the beauty of this model is I buy nothing excluding the furniture. I have no capital expense excluding the security deposit to rent the property. And I could just sign another lease when I want to give myself a raise. So it was a scalable, more high cash flowing vehicle because if you get the cash flow, then you can get back your time and then you could buy more properties. You get what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So that's ultimately how I ended up here. But I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about the actual Airbnb journey itself.
Oh, we're going to talk about the journey for sure. I do have a question though, and I know we're completely out of order here. So I apologize to everybody that's listening for being out of order, except that I do have this question.
Yes.
So when you're looking, let's just say that you're calling for rent ads, right? And property's available for rent. It's $2,000 a month, whatever. And you're talking to the landlord. You're having a conversation with them about, I'm going to rent this out as an Airbnb, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're upfront with them. You're telling them what you're doing. Do they have any objections? Like, do they have anything, any trepidation that you've experienced or come across?
Sure, sure. And by the way, with regard to the out of orderedness, that's probably just due to me being
No, it's fine.
digressing. So I take
No, it's
responsibility.
fine. It's fine. We
So
just have
sorry,
an
audience.
order. We have an order that we follow, right? On every episode, and you're episode 345. So I just don't, our loyal listeners, I want them to understand, number one, that I love them and I appreciate them, right? And I also want them to make sure I want to acknowledge to them that we're out of order, but we'll get back there in a minute. Go ahead.
I apologize, Mike Litton's audience, but
We're okay.
to answer your question, right? When you have this conversation with a landlord, yes, we're very upfront about this, right? Like, which is, hey, I will be listing this as a short-term rental, and I run a short-term rental business. And the analogy I like to give is it's kind of like being a restaurant owner, right? Like, the family-owned pizzeria. They don't own the real estate. They're renting the space to do business.
Good
Now,
point. Good
you
point.
might be asking, Vince, okay, why would a landlord want to do this? Right. And that's a fair question. But here's the short answer. Um, if you're a landlord, right, and you know this, Mike, what keeps us up at night? We've
Mhm.
got late rent, bad tenants, evictions. We've got the properties kept a mess. We've got the calls in the middle of
Maintenance. Yeah.
Yep. You get a call from a tenant about the leaky toilet and the squeaky floorboard, or you hire a property manager and now that comes out of your margins each month, right?
Mhm.
So if I rent your property to do business, what does that mean for you? That means on-time rent every single month. That means I'm the last tenant you're ever going to have. You're never going to have vacancy again. That means no more calls in the middle of the night about the leaky toilet because I'm running my business. So my point is, you as a landlord, you sit on your butt, you collect rent every single month on time, no property management fee, and I run a business out of it. Make sense?
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. And I love this. I mean, it's kind of like the light bulb going off, right? But if you're a landlord and you have an opportunity to rent to tenant A, and tenant A has a salary position at a company, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like what you used to do, right? The salary position at a company.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they lose their job? Okay. That landlord doesn't know if they have any money left in reserves. They may be looking at a lack of rent and an eviction and all that kind of stuff, right? And the economy is not necessarily the most assured right now. So they have that, or they have you who's constantly promoting the property and constantly renting it and constantly making money from it, right? I would think you'd be a more secure choice between tenant A and you. Make sense?
Absolutely. And if I can add too,
Absolutely.
here's the other thing is like, if I'm making money out of the property, I'm going to be the last tenant they ever have. Like I'll stay there for at least 2, 3 years. And oftentimes we sign a 2 to 3 year lease right out of the gate. So the average cash flow, if you're doing this correctly, Mike, is, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per month in net profit per property. And that's great, right? That allows us to kind of quickly get to that 5 to 10K per month mark that everybody is elusively, going after, right? So it's nice. It's just kind of a stackable model. If I'm happy, landlord's happy, and we could just stay there indefinitely. Makes sense.
And there's a real system to this. Like I have a good friend that actually manages 65 Airbnb properties out here.
Wow.
And it is crazy, right? The thing about it is they have a staff and all that kind of stuff, and they run it, like a business. I mean, it works well. The thing about it is that I'm constantly picking her brain about, so how do you do this with ratings? How do you make sure that you're getting what you should be, right? And so there's a real system to this. And what people need to understand is they can either go and do it school of hard knocks, and it's going to cost them thousands and thousands of dollars, and they may fall flat on their face, or they can come to work with you or hire you and have you coach them on, these are the things you need to watch out for, right? Like we had a conversation the other day with somebody that's an Airbnb, and one of the things we were talking about on our podcast was the importance of professional photos and how important it is that your photos are telling the story, because really that's your calling card, right? When they go on Airbnb and they're looking at your property, that's your calling card. I mean, real estate is location, 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 but really photos are your seller, right? Photos are what draw people in and make them decide to go ahead and book that particular property. And there's other properties out there on the Airbnb site and other properties that you compete with. The better you are at the presentation, the better you're going to do in terms of bookings. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I will say this too, because this ties into the conversation nicely too, Mike, is Airbnb, especially in 2025, 2026, it's more competitive. So it's not only about the marketing and the photos, like you said, but it is also about location, location, location. So where I see many people fall flat in the world of Airbnb nowadays is the days are gone of just listing any property on Airbnb and collecting a fortune. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's a good thing, because now if you do the research to make a data-driven decision that, hey, I know this property will be successful through data, then now you really just solidified yourself as a successful property, right?
Yeah.
So it does still require location. And then, like you said, the photos and marketing are one of the biggest components of this. And the other area I see people fall flat is they say, well, Vince, I'm going to watch an Airbnb and I'm going to furnish this thing to the nines. I want this thing to look beautiful. I'm going to spend, $6,000 on a couch from Restoration Hardware and do all this other stuff. And I'm like, dude, do you think anybody can tell that in a photo? Like I'm actually, so Mike, I told you at the beginning of this, I'm sitting in one of our Airbnb apartments right now because we're in the middle of rolling 2 more out. This couch was like $400, $300, so my point is people don't know that from a photo, and it's all based on how well you can make the property look, because that's what it's based on. That's how people book. Make sense?
So can I share something with you? I've literally never said this before. I've never said this before. Okay. I probably shouldn't say it now. I have had the opportunity to visit people in some very, very, very expensive homes with some very, very, very expensive furniture. And most of that furniture is some of the most uncomfortable stuff I've ever sat in my life. I'm just being honest. Okay. and yet I go to a place like Bob's Discount Furniture, right? And
Yeah.
it's sort of my thing. Like half the stuff there I like, and I actually sit in it, and it's comfortable, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but yeah, I wouldn't spend $6,000 on on a sofa if you paid me. I'm not joking. It's like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully, if it's okay, we're going to go back a little bit because I
Sure.
got to get us back in order, right? So, and like I said, I apologize to everybody. So, so you were born in Bethlehem. Did you grow up there?
I did. I grew up in Pennsylvania, suburban Pennsylvania,
Mhm.
my whole life until the college years.
Gotcha. So, what was your favorite thing about growing up there?
I think the small town vibe.
Yeah,
I think now listen, I wasn't like in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, where it was like each house was like a mile away from each other.
right.
Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania is actually booming now just
Mhm.
because it's 1 hour from Philly, it's 1 hour from New York. It's very central to everything, and good schools, everybody is like settling down there. But I guess to answer your question more directly, I think it was nice because, growing up as a kid in suburban Pennsylvania, it was like everybody was outside all the time. All the
Yeah.
neighbors knew one another. The kids in the neighborhood, we hung out together. We rode bikes together. It was like we lived outside. We just
Mhm.
lived like with the neighborhood and the community and stuff. And of course, that changes a lot as you get older. But Pennsylvania, again, I had access to the major cities if I wanted to go,
Mhm.
and the lower cost of living. But as a kid, I had great schools in the Lehigh Valley, which
Yeah.
I'm blessed and fortunate that I felt like I got a great education.
Yeah, that's cool. So, growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
My father,
Yeah.
my father,
What did he do?
he was and still is in software sales. He's a sales executive, and he, he raised us very well. And
Mhm.
he set the bar high, the standard high. We were an old school like Catholic Italian family, so everybody's very blunt,
Mhm.
very direct, and
You're
um,
kidding.
yeah, and but as you get older, you learn to appreciate that. When you're a kid, you're rebellious towards it, and then as
Yeah,
you get older, you're like,
yeah,
man, if I was raised any differently, I'm not sure I'd be where I'm at.
yeah.
So he was a testament, I think, to work ethic as well as just work ethic as well as just being successful in the field that you're in. I think he
Mhm.
just owned it and dominated it, and to this day, he is still a force to be reckoned with in that world, and I admire that.
That's cool, man.
Mhm.
So, in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Great question. No. In high school, I was kind of like an airhead, and it's funny if you were to see a photo of me from high school, Mike. I'd have like big diamond studs, and I was definitely probably not sober or whatever, and then this and that, and I was all over the place. I was very lost in life, and it wasn't until college until I got kicked into gear. But to answer your question, when I was in college, Mike, I was at Penn State, and I had to take, like when you're in college, you have to take like a certain amount of credits in order to
Mhm.
graduate and all this other stuff. And
Mhm.
I remember I had to take an international cultures credit class just
Mhm.
to suffice the requirement. And the only class that was available was this class called Religions of the World. And I take this class. It's taught by a very passionate professor. It ended up being the coolest, most interesting course I've ever taken in my life. And it was about the top 5 religions of the world based on population. I think, I might be botching this, but Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, right? If I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
or no, I'm sorry, Islam. And it was incredibly interesting just to see all of these different perspectives from around the world on a very similar concept, but how differently the vantage point was.
Mhm.
Now, I know this has nothing to do with business, but ultimately it was very eye-opening. And I think I've gained a much deeper appreciation for everybody's viewpoint
Mhm.
on a very sensitive subject, which I think in turn translated to that same level of appreciation for other sensitive subjects and other just conversational points in life. So again, not really having much to do with real estate, but it ended up being something that was really cool, eye-opening, and inspiring.
Oh, I'm okay that it doesn't have anything to do with real estate.
Yeah.
This thing's about you, right?
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
So in high school,
Mhm.
did you have a favorite teacher?
I'll be honest, high school, I don't remember.
That's okay. It's all right. It's fair answer. So you graduate from high school and you decide to go to Penn State. Obviously, your grades were good enough to get into Penn State, right?
Yes. Yes. So it wasn't until again my like senior year where I kind of like kicked things into gear.
Gotcha.
But as a matter of fact, Mike, to be honest, now that you're asking me this, my first 2 years of college, I went to community college. I went to community
Really?
college for video and audio production. I thought that I wanted to like get into making videos and movies and content and all of this
Mhm.
stuff. And at the time, like I said, I was kind of lost. Like I really didn't have my stuff together.
Mhm.
You know, if you talk to me, I was like not very, professional or cared very much about my image or appearance or things like that. And then it wasn't until halfway, like I was a year or two in, my community college degree, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I'm
Mhm.
not gonna be able to make money with this. Like, this isn't. What am I doing?
Mhm.
And that's when the light bulb, the switch flicked, and I was like, all right, from now on, I'm gonna have to pursue something that is
Mhm.
lucrative, that's respected, that I can be proud of. And then I very quickly made the shift into business, and then that's when I went into Penn State, gone through my business degree, and then ultimately got into sales after college.
Gotcha. So why did you go to this? You mentioned before we hit record, by the way, full disclosure, we had a
Sure.
little bit of a visit before we, we should tape. We should give people access because I've had people request this before. Give people access to the conversation we have before we hit record, just because we solve all the world's problems, so everybody can just relax, right?
For sure, yeah.
So, you mentioned before that you went to a smaller campus. Did you
Mhm.
go to that smaller campus because it was closer to home, or why did you do that?
That was one of the best decisions in my professional life. So why did I do it? One, it was cheaper, right?
Mhm.
Because here's the thing: is if I went to Penn State, Maine, even me being a Pennsylvania resident, if you factor in Penn State main campus plus
Mhm.
dorming plus all this, it's like it's still $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
Whereas the local campus, significantly less.
Awesome.
And I was only 15 minutes from home. Now,
Yeah.
I sacrificed the full college experience,
Yeah.
which we could probably argue there's probably some significant benefits of doing that. But I'll be honest, Mike, at that point in my life, if I had gone to main campus, I probably would have got mixed up with a whole slew of, drinking and whatever and stuff like that. And I probably wouldn't have done nearly as well as I did.
Yeah.
So, do I regret it? No. Right. And as a matter of fact, between you and I, Penn State was only 2 hours away. I went there every other weekend. I still had a good time. So, um, but going back to that, going to a smaller campus, I was
Yeah.
in a class of 30 kids.
Yeah.
Like, so if I had to be in touch with my professor, I could see him tomorrow, which by the way, that guy was a godsend. Thank God
Mhm.
he was there. And if I had, or I'm sorry, my advisor, I meant, not
Yeah.
professor, but if I did have to get in touch with my professor, it was a much more intimate experience, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that helped me tremendously going to a smaller college.
It probably did. It probably
Yeah.
did. So what community college did you go to?
Northampton Community College.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So here's a question for you.
Hit
So
me.
after you graduate college, you go into sales.
Mhm.
I find that fascinating considering your dad's in sales, right? So
Yeah.
you go into sales. What's the single most important thing that you learned in that first job in sales?
Man, that's a great question. Sales, I think, is a very humbling experience.
Yes.
It's a very humbling experience because you realize very quickly how many things you suck at,
Mhm.
right? And I went immediately into medical device sales,
Mhm.
which is all in the field in person, and I'm
Mhm.
dealing with surgeons, like I'm speaking
Mhm.
with physicians. So it wasn't like this thing where I was like, I was like a car, nothing against car salesmen. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't like I was in a position where I could just kind of like say whatever I want and get away with it. I'm talking to somebody, I'm trying to sell a product to somebody who is 10 times more experienced, 10 times smarter than me, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, it wasn't like I could just walk out there and kill it.
Mhm.
And it's funny, in the world of medical sales, Mike, the best reps are the ones that are the most, for lack of a better term, humble, which is like
Mhm.
my approach to a physician is not, hey doc, you got to try this out. This is the coolest thing ever, yada yada. It's a, hey man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You know what you're doing. I want to hear from you. Could you help me learn about this surgery and this procedure and your patients? And those would become the best relationships,
Mhm.
which would ultimately then become the best business builders for you down the line as a medical sales rep.
Mhm.
So if I could boil this answer down to one sentence, I think um, it's humility. It's approaching sales it's approaching professionalism and the professional world from a standpoint of humility, enthusiasm, and overall just work ethic, which is just like, I'm going to be here early, I'm going to be here late, I'm going to be enthusiastic, so anybody that talks to me, they know that I'm passionate, and I'm also going to walk in the room and let everyone know that I don't think I'm hot shit. That, pardon my language, but I don't think I'm,
All that. Yeah.
yeah, I'm all that. I want you to lead the way. So kind of like how you approach this podcast, Mike, you take the spotlight and you point it on the guest.
Mhm. Well, you're our agenda, right? You are our agenda, not me, right? I'm just here to ask questions and find things out. So, do you mind if we talk about sales for a second?
I would love to. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is I'm legitimately interested in how you approach this, because you grew up in a household where your dad was selling, right? Your dad was in sales. Now, software sales are different from medical device sales, just like medical device sales are different from car sales,
Right.
right? But what I find interesting is the things that we have more in common than are the differences. And if I walk into a room and I say to somebody, especially a doctor, "Hey, I've got this thing. It's the greatest thing ever. You got to try it." Okay. That person, no matter who they are, doctor or not, basically is going to turn tail and run the other way like they're, what's on fire, right?
Hmm.
The thing about it is, about 35 years ago, or actually more than that now, geez, time's getting away from me. I was certified in sales mastery with Tony Robbins.
Awesome.
And it completely changed every conception I had of sales. And I fell in love with it in a way that I never realized I would. Because literally, what you just said about tell me about your practice, tell me about your patients, tell me about what works best for you, and how we can use our product to help you, right? That's literally sales 101. It's not, hey, baby, I got the best deal in the world for you. Take this. It's not that slick, thing that people think it is when they think sales, right? And we've earned in the selling profession, we've earned that reputation, right? Not me, but I mean, a lot of people in our industry have earned that reputation. I tell people all the time, I've been in the real estate business for 33 years, and I tell them, you're not in sales.
Hmm.
People love to say that you sell real estate. You don't. What you do is you work with people to figure out what works best for them, and then you go find them what works best for them.
I, you know,
It's
you
that
know,
simple.
Mike, it's so funny. It's so funny you say that. I've been around realtors a decent amount in my life, and I don't often see them do that. And
Yeah.
I always, whenever the thought has definitely crossed my mind, like, oh, maybe I should get into selling real estate. And selling real estate to me has always been a game of, dude, just tell me what you want,
Mhm.
and I'll find it.
Yeah.
And I don't see a lot of realtors do that. You
Yeah.
know,
The other
um,
thing they don't do is they don't dig. Okay. And this drives me up the wall. Like, I've been teaching for 33 years, literally. The first job I had in real estate, I was in charge of 48 loan officers. Okay. My job was to teach these people. Okay. And ultimately, what I was teaching them was sales, but I was teaching them how to connect.
mm,
Right. And the thing that absolutely just blows my mind is how people, and by the way, I think this might work in Airbnb arbitrage too, where you sit with no, literally, you sit with a landlord and you start having a conversation with them about how long have you owned the property? What would be your ideal tenant? How is it that we can be your dream, right? What can we do to make sure that you feel secure about what it is that we're doing so that we can work together? Because literally, we're here proposing a multi-year relationship,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
You with me? And so
absolutely.
it's one of those things where you're asking questions right? And you're building rapport and you're ultimately connecting, right? Like I will sit with a seller and I'll ask them, they'll try to hire me to sell their house. And I'll sit with them and I'll ask them, so tell me about your house. Tell me about what was it, 25 years ago when you walked in here that made you decide this was the house for you,
Mhm.
right? What's your favorite thing about your neighborhood? What's your favorite thing about your city, right? What's your favorite thing about this area in general? Share with me what it is that you love about living here. Okay. And what ends up happening is they end up having a conversation with me about all the things that they love to do. We take a tour of the house and they share with me, how they put sprinklers in when they didn't know anything about how to put sprinklers in, but they did it themselves because they couldn't afford to hire a professional landscaper, right?
Mhm.
They got a sunburn, the whole thing. They'll share all that with me. Okay. That's the kind of thing that you need. What made you buy this house? What made you move here? Where did you come from? Right? Literally, the conversation needs to be about them and about where they come from and how they got to where they are.
Mhm.
Make sense?
I was in I joined a sales seminar. It was just for fun. It was a sales like entrepreneurship type seminar in Scottsdale, Arizona, not long ago. And they had this guy, I forget his name. They had this guy come on stage. He leads a sales force of over 1,000 people in South America for boutique hotels. And he says, man, if I could just boil this down to one thing, he goes, the advice I would give is you take this concept and you apply it to whatever you do in sales. He says, when I talk to somebody on the phone, I say, could you walk me through a day in the life of your perfect dream vacation?
Mhm.
And then just shut up.
Mhm.
And that was it. And he just like, he really emphasized that this is like the biggest, most important thing was just like, let them talk and
Yeah.
visualize and get in a state of what it is that they want.
Yeah.
So,
I'll have buyers close their eyes. Like close your eyes and tell me, drive up to your dream house. How big is the lawn? Is it a 3-car garage, 4-car garage, 8-car garage? What is it? Is it
mhm,
2-story, 1-story? Does it have a view? Right? What's it like when you walk in the front door? Is it a double door? Is it a single door? What does it look, right? Walk me through give me your dream. Okay. And they'll walk me through the entire thing. And I'm taking notes copiously, right? I'm writing things down in terms of what it is that they're looking for.
mhm,
That's exactly what you want to do.
mhm.
You want them to share with you what their dreams are.
Right, right,
That's the
right.
key to this thing.
In the world of Airbnb, man, it's the same thing, Mike, too. Like we lead, like whenever we approach a landlord, like we lead the conversation with all of the benefits for them,
Mhm.
right? Which so I'm not going to a landlord and saying, "Hey, I want to Airbnb your property, please. This is a great fit. I really want to do it. Like, help me." No, it's much more of a conversation. Hey, look, um, Mr. Landlord, interested in this property, but let me kind of explain how this works for you, which is ultimately at the end of the day, by partnering with me, I'm going to provide XYZ, boom, 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 boom. And this leads to you having basically the passive experience that you wanted in a tenant with your real estate investment property. So it's always about leading with the benefits to who you're speaking.
Yeah. And I would ask them, when I called them, I'd ask them, and what's your perfect tenant look like?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a great
What's
question.
the single most important thing to you about the perfect tenant?
Mhm.
Right? You took this ad out, you're looking for a tenant. What are you looking for? Share
Mhm.
with me what your perfect tenant would be. And all of a sudden it's like they start opening up and they start sharing with you. It'd be somebody with a high credit score. It'd be somebody that made money, be somebody that would be secure. They knew they could make their pay. The whole thing, right? If I never
Mhm.
got a call at 3 o'clock in the morning to fix a clogged toilet, that would be perfect, right? That kind of thing. So you get an opportunity, right? And then you can ask them, hey, so how long have you owned this house? Have
Mhm.
you been renting it for a while? That kind of thing, right? You get into this
Mhm.
conversation, and then as you're going through it, they can ask you questions about the benefits and about why it would be, and all of a sudden you're in the connection zone, right? So
Right, right.
anyway, it's I'm literally writing a book on the power of questions. I'm not joking. I'm literally
Oh,
right
awesome.
now writing a book on the power of questions. So
Awesome, awesome.
because I feel like we don't do that enough, right? I was invited to Stanford University a couple of months ago. I was a guest on a public speaking professor's podcast. He happens to teach at Stanford, and he said, "Hey, we'd love to have you up as our guest of honor. we have this dinner that we do at the end of each semester, and we have, it's going to be, there were 48 people there that night. I
Mhm.
arranged for my son and his girlfriend to go because they work up there and live up there, right?
Mhm.
So I went up there and they came to the dinner, and I got up there and I said, "Okay, teach. What am I teaching? What am I?" Right? He goes, "Oh, no, no, you're not teaching. You're giving a toast, and you have 2 minutes." Like, it takes me 30 minutes to introduce myself, right? No, you have 2 minutes and you can't go over. It's a mortal sin here if you go over your time. So I
Mm.
gave them 2 items of value. Number one, if you ever have stage fright, if you're ever up in front of a group and you have stage fright, just love the audience more than you love yourself. Stage fright goes away.
Mm.
Secondly, if one of what I suggested they do is something that I suggested that my kids did. I suggested that my kids do this. Get a word processor and take a blank document, and at the top, in the biggest font you can, write "Stay in Curiosity." At the bottom, write "Stay out of judgment." Print it and put it up in front of where you work so you see it every day, because we're not curious enough nowadays about the people we're talking to. Okay, if all you do is stay curious, your life will be so rich you won't even recognize it. So
Mm.
sitting in that audience was Miss Universe Europe. Do you know she went on to win Miss Universe?
Amazing.
True story. English is a second language for her, and yet
Wow.
and English was a second language for about half that class, and they got up, all of them got up in front of these people they didn't know and
Mhm.
spoke. It was a cool thing, man. It was a very, very cool thing.
That's
So
awesome.
anyway, sorry, I digress. So
No, so do I.
so your first job in corporate America is in medical device sales. How long did you do that?
Total of about 8 years before
Okay.
doing the full-time,
Did it feel like a grind?
it was absolutely a grind. I have one quick story I wanna tell because, I like telling this story a lot.
I love it.
So, uh, medical device sales was, it was rewarding. It's a lucrative field, but it's a grind. Like, you're in the car for hours upon end, and if you do care about your territory, you're doing a lot of traveling, a lot of windshield time, and it's a very entrepreneurial role because, like, even though you're in corporate and you're working a job, the way that it works is like, hey, Mike, here's your geography. It's your business. Make it work, and that's
Mhm.
it. Every day you make
Get
your own
after it.
schedule, and
Yeah.
it's like, it's cool. So the one story I want to tell, was, I was fortunate enough, I did pretty decent. I was in a division of the company that was kind of like failing,
Mhm.
but that was a good opportunity for me as a young guy because they basically gave me all the flexibility in the world. They were like, dude,
Awesome.
we need the young energy, just do what you got to do. So I did well in that division. My peers thought highly of me, and I was fortunate enough to get moved into a division that had a little bit higher of a ceiling. It was a little bit of a bigger deal, and there were more stakes. As a matter of
Mhm.
fact, I pivoted into a 100% commission role. It was 100% commission, and I remember I took this position, and I had just come from a division where my boss was like a great mentor to me. I had a great relationship with him. My other colleagues in my region, my other sales reps in my region, we were all real like buddies, pals. I loved it. I was on cloud nine. And I pivoted into this new division, tougher, tougher manager, tougher product to sell, 100% commission, all this stuff. And literally 3, 4 months in, Mike, I was like, I was so overwhelmed. I was
Mm.
like, what did I do? What did I do? I was in the best position ever. Couldn't have asked for a better job. Couldn't have asked, whatever, this and that. And now I'm here, and I'm like, I was freaking out. I was like, dude, I don't know if I can handle this. And I remember I go to my parents' house. I promise this story gets better. I go to my parents' house one night, and I'm like in a terrible mood because I just felt so stressed, and
Mm.
my parents saw it because I was giving them sass. I wasn't even I just wasn't a fun person to be around
Mhm.
because I just felt so overwhelmed and bogged down from what I had done, and I felt this like sense of regret and all of this stuff. So they asked me, Vince, what's going on? And I just let them, I just poured my heart out at this point. I'm like, guys, look, I feel like I'm lost. I feel like I made the wrong move. I feel like I'm in the wrong, position. I'm not doing well. There's more pressure. There's this and that. My father's just said, Vince, I wouldn't worry about whether or not you made the right decision. You already made it. Just make it right. And I was like, okay. So the next year, the following, 9 to 12 months was just head down, shut up, work hard. And fortunately, that following year, I was the number one rep in my division. I did $1.3 million over my quota. And I don't say that out of like, gloating or, any of that stuff. I say that because that never would have happened if I did what a lot of people do and say, this is too tough. This isn't for me, yada, yada. I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So point is, that lesson I think is a very important lesson, which I tend to forget from time to time, which is be decisive. And once you make the decision, just own it.
Mm-hmm.
Just own it. Because once you burn the boat, once you burn the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
that's when great things happen.
Yeah. And there just is no going back, right? Because the thing that was making you so uncomfortable and so grumpy was you were looking back.
Yes.
And that's what your dad recognized. Your dad's like, hey, you already made the decision. Get after it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's kind of like
Absolutely.
my dad when I go to him and say things like this. It's like, I don't know why we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
By the way, my dad said to me one day, he goes, you're looking at me like I'm an idiot. But one of these days, I'm going to be a genius in your eyes. And I had to call him a couple of decades ago and tell him that he made genius status. That was a
Yeah.
big day for him. That was
Mike,
a
let me
big
tell
day for
you,
him.
that theme of decisiveness and owning your decision and burning the bridge, that theme comes up many times in my life,
Yeah.
and you don't realize it when you're in it.
Yeah.
But things are clearer in hindsight. So my point is, that's a very important thing to master. It's a very important thing to master, is being decisive and then also just owning the decision once you make
Yeah.
it.
Just pin your ears back and get after it, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. Your dad's a very wise guy. I love it.
Yeah.
So you're in medical device. So, oh, by the way, real quick. So you mentioned that you did 1.3 million above your quota. What was your quota?
I don't remember. I want to say it was 2.7. So
So you did 4 million. Good job.
yeah, it was
That's a
it was
significant increase.
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's almost 50%, dude. That's awesome. Good job.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right. So so you're in there for 8 years, and then what do you do?
So towards the end, towards year 8, was when my friend approached me, my business partner, his name's Adam. We built both of these companies together, the Airbnb portfolio and the coaching company. And he approached me and said, "Hey man, I learned about this model. What do you think? About renting properties and Airbnb them and collecting a cash flow." And I was like, "Dude, no, it's stupid." I was like, "You don't own anything. There's no equity." I come from the world of learning how to do real estate investing, and I was like, I don't like it. And I don't remember what the switch was that flipped in me, where eventually I said, "All right, screw it, let's try it." But when we tried it, we went all in. And in our first year of this model, we went from 0 to 21 properties live. And by year 2, we were well over that. I think now we're at anywhere from 38 to 42 or something like that. I don't even remember at this point, because we've gotten into deals where we've, partnered up with other people, and they take some apartments, we take some apartments, things like that. But my point is, in a short time frame, we were able to take this thing from 0 to multiple 6 figures. And then by year 2, enter into the 7-figure realm of revenue with Airbnb. Just again, because you can grow as quickly as you'd like, because there's not really any capital involvement,
Right.
The only
Other than the
capital
furniture,
involvement,
right?
exactly. But so, for example, we got this guy here.
Mhm.
I didn't this 2-bedroom unit probably cost $8,000, $9,000 to furnish, right?
Mhm.
I didn't pay that out of pocket. I went to the bank. I created an LLC, and I got a 0% interest credit card for our business for 10, 20, 30,000. And I just financed it on that with 0% interest. And then I took the cash flow from the business and we used that to pay this down. So my point is, the only cash I ever had to spend to start this portfolio, Mike, was way back when we first started it, for that first few $1,000s in security deposits. And then we just kept using the 0% interest business credit formula,
Rolling it over.
just rolling it over.
That's
So
cool.
to date, I maybe spent 5 to 10K out of pocket, maybe. And that's that.
That's business. And that's a great business. All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the coaching company. We're going to actually, you have a special offer for our listeners. So they're going to want to, they're going to want to come back because you have a free bundle for them, which is really, really cool. We'll be right back. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go there today. We're back with Vince Villani, and we're talking about Airbnb arbitrage. And before the break, we were talking about the company that you started with your partner, Adam, and how you basically took it from 0 to 7 figures year 2, right? And literally how you put together this plan where you took out a 0% interest rate credit card, you use that to actually fund, if you will, each one of these Airbnbs. So in the first year, how many Airbnbs did you guys do?
We went from 0 to 21 were live by the end of the year.
Okay. And what do you average in terms of revenue per Airbnb?
Revenue per Airbnb is, we have a blend, right? We have a blend of properties. Some of them are single family homes. And then towards the end of that first year, we then began to experiment in deals like this, where we take apartment complexes and we go to them and we say, hey, let me lease 5, right?
Wow.
So the reason I mention this is apartments tend to do a little bit less revenue because they sleep less people.
Yeah.
So I would say that the average revenue per property is anywhere from 30 to like 60K, right?
Okay.
If we're to take an average of everything, but that's revenue. Profit margin, the margin that we look for before taking any deal, before any of our students take any deal, is a minimum cash flow of about $1,000, $2,000 per month.
Okay. Why would you make the decision to go rent 5 apartments versus a single family detached home? Because like you just said, it sleeps less, it's less revenue, that kind of thing. Talk about that for a second, because it sort of seems counterintuitive.
Right. So the salesperson in you is going to like this. The reason why we like we call this, the term we coined for this, it's called apartment scaling, right?
Okay.
So if I go to a building, this is more of an advanced strategy. So for those who are just starting out in the world of Airbnb,
Yeah, don't go rent 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say let's walk before you can run.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is a cool strategy you can do after you get your first couple of units and you want to go big. But so here's the thing, is I can go to an apartment complex. I say, hey, I know you're struggling with vacancy. I'm willing to take 5 to 10, right? And then what you do is you lease those 5 to 10. You do the same thing where you furnish them, you list them as short-term rentals, and then you get them live. Now, they typically net a little bit less than a house. Like we usually will, look for like a $700 to maybe, $1,200 range in profit over the course of a year per unit, right? Per month. But the reason why we like these deals is because the money is not made on the deal. The money is made in the negotiation. Because now that I go to an apartment complex and I say I'm taking 5, now what I can do is I have way more leverage to say, all right, I'd like lower rent. I'd like 2 months rent concession. I'd like this. I'd like that.
Lower deposit, whole thing.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. So the money's not made so much on the 30,000 foot view. It's made on the negotiation after you get those better terms, right?
Right.
So we actually like these deals a little bit better. As a matter of fact, our very first 7 apartments that we took, it was in Pittsburgh. We didn't know what to expect. It was our first time experimenting in this world of apartments. But at the end of the year, the end of 2024, we did the full year audit. We were like, dude, these 7 apartments just cash flowed us $90,000. And we're like, this is the new wave for us. And then we pivoted into bigger, better opportunities like this and whatnot. So the thing is, both models work. It's just a matter of, do you want to walk or do you want to run? But I don't recommend going the apartment route until you have a little bit of experience, unless you get some really, 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 expert hands-on guidance with diving into that world, because it's like you grow fast. So the scalability is the short answer.
So most apartment management companies have a tough time getting you to rent more than or lease more than like 6 months to a year, right? In fact, they have all kinds of incentives to try to get you to lease for more than a year. And they have a tough time doing it. I mean, I've talked with them. They have a tough time getting people to commit more than that. Are you coming in and saying 2 to 3 years?
Yes,
So that's
usually.
another leverage too, because they don't see that normally, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, what opportunity is there with doing this model? And it's like you can't say this about every single city, like New York, for example, especially with the regulations and stuff. But like perfect examples, I'm in Philadelphia. You
Mhm.
drive down the street here, every single building's advertising 2 months rent free to Joe off the street.
Yeah.
Now imagine if you take 5. So
Yeah.
my point is like
For 3 years.
exactly. Everybody's struggling with vacancy. These real estate investors and developers, they're building stuff all over the place, but
Mhm.
there's not exactly the demand for it.
Right.
So my point is buildings are hurting for
Mhm.
getting some sort of occupancy. So this model works pretty nicely in
Yeah.
most markets.
That's cool. Okay. So you do the Airbnb thing, arbitrage thing for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and you decide to start the coaching company. Now, for a second, so there are people that are listening to this that are thinking about doing something. Okay.
Mhm.
They're thinking about starting a company. They're thinking about, we've had people that told us that they were inspired, like 50 different people have told us they were inspired by our podcast to go start a podcast, right? We've had, and it was more than 50 now, but um,
I'm sure.
we've had, and these are the ones we know of, right? These are just the ones we know of. We've had a bunch of people that have been inspired to, start, you're writing a book, that kind of thing. There are people that are listening to this or thinking about starting something, thinking about doing something, and they're sort of reticent, right? They're just kind of sitting back and sort of collecting data and that kind of thing. You guys decide to go out and start this coaching company. Talk a little bit about the mindset behind that.
Yeah. I'll be honest, Mike, this business model is one of the lowest risk, lowest barrier to entry business models out there
Yeah.
for anybody looking to generate 5 to 10K a month, start an online business that can be managed completely remotely, and who's always wanted to get in real estate but didn't have the capital. And I'm not just saying that, like, it just look at the back of napkin math. If you rent a property, you got to pay a security deposit, let's say $2,000, right? You furnish it. You use that method that I just talked about where you,
Mhm.
you use a 0% interest credit card. You don't even have to pay for that out of pocket. So my point is you're out 2, maybe 5K if you have a higher rent or something like that. And it's like, that's it.
Mhm.
Now, the cool thing about Airbnb is it's a business model. It's not just a real estate investment vehicle. And the good part about that is if it's a business model, that means you can plug people and tools in that will run that stuff for you. You
Mhm.
don't have to do it yourself. So, like, for example, we have, like I said, 40 some units now. Like, I'm not sitting there messaging guests. I'm not running to the properties to clean the toilets. You hire a cleaning team, you hire a virtual assistant overseas that can handle all that guest messaging for you. Like, I'm sure your friend that has 65 Airbnbs, she probably says, I don't spend that much time day to day actually managing the Airbnbs. So the point is, it blends a lot of the coolest, latest and greatest with regards to tech in real estate
Mhm.
without actually having to put $100,000 of capital on the line.
Mhm.
So it's such a cool business model. So Adam and I saw that and we're inspired to give that to other people who have always wanted to start a business. And we're like, dude, let's teach you how to do it.
Mhm.
Like, we did it in less than a year. We could teach you how to do it. So that was the mindset behind why we did it.
So you decide to start the coaching company,
Mhm.
and that was how long ago?
About a year and a half, 2 years ago now.
Okay. So you start it and you
Mhm.
start working with your coaching clients,
Yes.
right? What's the number one most important thing that you see that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing?
That they shouldn't be doing.
Correct.
I think having the mindset of dipping their toes in.
Yeah.
I think many of these, like,
Not
for
burning,
example,
not burning the boats.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. It's it's with any of these. It's not just Airbnb. It's with the guys I think that sign up to do, like, oh, I want to do like this side hustle online or drop
Mhm.
shipping or Amazon or e-commerce or whatever it is. Most of the time when people sign up for it, they go in with the mindset of I just want to, like, dip my toes in, and if I make a little bit of progress, then I'll go all in and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
Like it's either you do it or you don't, and you reap what you sow. So ultimately, if you're going to do this or anything else, I would go in with the mindset of day one of, I'm going to stick with this for an entire year
Mhm.
and I'm going to give it a solid effort, right? Worst case scenario, I wanted to make $10,000 a month. I wanted to make $5,000 a month. I only make 3 or 4,
Mhm.
but at least you made progress. So it's like, but you got to stick with it for a year. You got to go all in.
What's the number one thing that your new coaching clients learn getting into this business?
How to, number one thing that new clients learn, I think, is if I could pick one thing, it's a lot, right? But if I
No,
could
there's a
pick,
lot. Yeah.
it's the importance of analysis and making data-driven decisions.
Yeah.
We don't pick Airbnbs and properties to Airbnb just on a whim. It's like we teach them specifically how to look at the data and come to a conclusion and a calculation of how much that property is going to make once you list it.
Mhm.
And
How
that
do
I
you do
think is,
that?
how do we do it? Yeah, very simple. We use there's plenty of softwares out there that actually allow you to look at Airbnb revenue data. The one that we use, it's called AirDNA. And now listen, a lot of these tools, Mike, they can be used well and they can be used and get really poor results. Like obviously, like you have to know how to navigate these systems. We don't just type in a magic address and then we take whatever number it spits out and say, oh, okay, great. Like we actually do what's called a comp analysis, kind of like probably what you did on the real estate side, which
Mhm.
is if I'm looking at this house, I'm going to look at these other 5 houses or Airbnbs nearby, see exactly how much they're making, come to a conclusion on exactly why, and then I take that calculation and I run my own calculations with it. Make sense?
Yes. So why does one Airbnb do better than another Airbnb? Like if you're looking on AirDNA, and I've never been on AirDNA, but if you're
You're
looking
good.
on AirDNA and you've got this 3,000 square foot single family detached house and you want to Airbnb it, and you look at 5 around there. What is it that makes one earn more than the other?
It's funny. So the guide I'm gonna offer your listeners will literally walk through this step by step. Like,
Okay, well, let's do this,
yeah,
because we've already mentioned it. We already teased it. Tell them what the code is. It's MEL
sure.
25, right?
MLE,
Oh,
Mike
pardon me,
Litton.
MLE. I apologize.
So
MLE 2025 or 25 or something.
yeah, so here I'll give you a quick rundown. So for anyone listening to this podcast, I want to offer you, something specific for you, to help inspire you if your goal is you want to start with Airbnb and you feel like, okay, this is actually a really cool vehicle for me. It resonates with me. I want to create an online business. I want something that can make me an extra $5,000 to $10,000 a year or month, and potentially even make this a full-time gig.
Mhm,
If that's you and you want to learn how to start with Airbnb, where most people struggle is finding a market that makes sense and finding properties that make sense. And like,
mhm,
actually, how do I come to a conclusion on the profitability and the numbers?
mhm,
So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you 2 things. The first is a step-by-step guide. It's an Airbnb market launch blueprint, is what we call it, and it literally will walk you through step by step, finding regulations, running numbers, how to come to a conclusion on whether or not the market near you makes sense, and if the properties in that market, which ones are the best. So I'm going to give you that PDF, and then on top of that, I'm going to give you just a free game plan session with either me or somebody on our fulfillment team, complimentary. So this will be a 30-minute call. It's not a sales call. This is for us to just kind of get an assessment of what you're looking for with Airbnb and give you some recommendations and homework to work towards. Of course, we will offer you a spot on our team if you want that, if you want to talk about it, but it's totally optional. So, both of these things, I'm going to put this together in a bundle for you. All you have to do is direct message me on Instagram. So it's my name on Instagram is Vinny, Vinny BNB, like Airbnb. So Vinny BNB. And if you shoot me a message saying with the message MLE for Mike Litton Experience 2525 for 2025, I have an automation in place. It'll automatically send that to you directly on Instagram. So MLE 25, and my Instagram is VINNY BNB.
Awesome. Thank you. So you mentioned, and it's like my cousin Vinny, right? Vinny.
Yeah.
Right. So you mentioned a minute ago regulations, and this
Yeah.
is kind of the thing that a lot of people have been following because there are all of these municipalities and homeowners associations and all that kind of thing that are going
Oh,
to
yeah.
these 30-minute or pardon me, 30-day minimum rentals, right?
Mhm.
Can you talk about that for a second? How is it that you're staying up to speed with all that? And then how is it that you're overcoming that?
Before we choose any market to pursue, Mike, we do look at the regulations and we make sure that it makes sense. Now, if the regulations are super insane to where it doesn't make sense, I will not target it and I will not advise that anybody targets it, right? Now, here's the good news. There's 19,000 cities in the US. Usually, if one is a pain in the butt, the one next to it might not
Right.
be much. So, usually we can make a pivot pretty quickly based on where somebody is located. But I will say this, things that are regulated are usually things that are here to stay.
Mhm.
So I don't think short-term rentals is going anywhere because of it. I actually just think the regulations just force us to have to play by the rules, and that's fine. More often than not, most markets, the regulations are just a very simple permit for $100 and you file online. This is not legal advice, of course, but my point is more often than not, regulations are really nothing to be too concerned about. If it is something pretty crazy, like a California or New York, Manhattan type thing, we're just not targeting it. We're just not going to go there.
Yeah. Where do you find the regulations?
uh, Easiest way is just Google your city name, short-term rental regulations, and there will oftentimes be a .gov, like a government website that pops up, and you can just sift through that. That's the best place. I wouldn't go to some like Airbnb blog website or whatever. I would just go right to the source. Worst case scenario, you call them if you don't understand, and you talk to the housing department.
So you talk to the housing department. That's typically who has these regulations, right? You talk to the
Mhm.
housing department. One of the things, should you be asking them if they're in the process of working on any sort of short-term rental restrictions?
Good question. You can. I don't think it's super necessary because usually the government moves pretty slow for most things. So it's like if there were regulations that were being imposed, we would probably see it from a mile ahead of, a mile down the road. But it doesn't hurt to ask that question.
So what happens, and again, this is all, hypothetical, right? But what happens if somebody goes out and they start an Airbnb arbitrage, that kind of thing, and the regulations change
Great question.
mid 3-year lease?
Great question. So again, usually we will notice if regulations are being proposed way ahead of time. But let's just say you have a 3-year lease and something changes in that 3 years, right? So, what we have every landlord or property owner do is sign an addendum with us, right? So, this is an additional document on top of the lease that says, hey, you know that I'm running this as a short term rental, right? So, like, I have legal permission to do this. But on top of that, I include terminology in that addendum that says if for whatever reason legally I no longer have the capability to do this, the lease is void, right? So they agree with that. Now, that's a protection that I created for us. Not everybody does that. I think they should if they do this model. Make sense?
Yeah. And that's really smart, by the way. You have to have something in writing that says that you're doing this and they're giving you permission to do it, right?
Mhm.
And then protecting yourself from any sort of downside. So if that happens, then the lease is void, and you're picking up your stuff and going to the next deal, right?
Mhm.
So California and New York are kind of crazy when it comes to real estate, and they're really crazy when it comes to like short-term rentals. There are some people out here that are making so much money in the short-term rental business. It is just crazy. I mean, nuts. But
Mhm.
you also have the local municipalities working on restrictions, right? And
Mhm.
so it's sort of a risk. It's sort of a risky area to do it, right? So California, New York, that kind of thing.
There are markets within those states that aren't as strict, but the major cities like LA, Manhattan, yeah, we avoid them. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know. So, do you have an area or states that you recommend?
Yeah, there are a handful of cities around the United States that are not super regulated, don't have a lot of red tape. Like just some that pop, in my mind off the top of my head: Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania; Dallas, Texas; Houston, Texas; Scottsdale, Arizona; Phoenix, Arizona; Charlotte, North Carolina. Like some of those cities do not have a lot of red tape, and they have some wiggle room with regards to like revenue and things like that. But as what we do with everybody, Mike, is usually what we'll do is we'll sit down with them and we'll just do an assessment of some markets near them. Keep in mind, remember I said at the beginning of this podcast, our goal is to make like a 1 to 2K per month cash flow range per
Mhm.
property.
Mhm.
Oftentimes you don't need to go to like a crazy city to do that. You could find that pretty locally, because we're not going for this Goliath short-term rental that's going to make 10K a month. We're just going for kind of like a run-of-the-mill property that will at least meet the margins that we're looking for. And you can often find that without having to travel. Make sense?
So you're not trying to knock it out of the park on the first deal.
As a matter of fact, those properties are harder to find than to just try to find a property that will make enough to meet our baseline.
Like
Because like
minimum standard, yeah.
if you're like, let me put it this way: if you go out on this, in this venture to find Airbnbs, I mean, of course, we want to find the highest quality properties possible, Mike. But if you're only looking for these six-figure properties, they're few and far between. Like they're harder to come by, and then it'll just take longer for you to make progress. We'd rather you be able to get closer to your goals a little bit more quickly just by finding properties that make sense.
I'm going to ask you a question that I'm not sure you've ever been asked before,
Hit me.
but I call myself the king of the stupid questions. So because I try to actively stay out of judgment, right?
Sure,
And I try to stay in curiosity.
sure.
You mentioned earlier that you're sitting in one of your Airbnbs.
Yep.
I'm guessing, I'm presuming, I know, dangerous, right? I'm presuming that you have a system. Like you pretty much probably pick the same bar stools. You probably pick the same televisions. You probably pick the same $400 couches, that kind of thing. Am I wrong?
Sometimes. So we have a virtual interior designer
Okay.
um, that we use on many of our projects. She actually lives in Portugal, and we send her photos of the unit. I take photos on my phone, give her a quick floor plan, and then she comes up with a whole interior design. And we say, hey, let's keep it within budget. Like, hey, I only want to spend 4K in this studio or something like that, and
Mhm.
she'll do it. And that's actually, so we follow her guidance, but more often than not, we're buying from the same platforms. Yeah, the same websites, the same cheaper furniture, etc.
So are you buying property or are you buying furniture and furnishings typically online and having them
Yes.
delivered to the site?
Oh yeah. So we had boxes upon boxes come here over the last couple of days for these two apartments that we're furnishing now,
Right.
and we hired some guys on Craigslist to bring in the boxes, break them down, build out the furniture, all that stuff. As a matter of fact, they're knocking knocking on my door right now.
Yeah. That's cool. Okay. So do you mind if we take a tour of the unit?
Yeah, well, so this one's a little bit of a mess now because I'm staying here, but
Okay.
I can give you a quick walkthrough.
Okay. Well,
So,
okay. You don't have to show us the mess. So
all right,
you can, if you want. So here's what I'm getting at. People that are listening to this are probably, and again, this is, obviously audio and video, right? So this would be something where they'd have to go to our YouTube channel to watch this.
hmm
But do you mind sort of walking us around with sort of not every single room or whatever, but just kind of a highlight of, hey, this is how we do it, and this
sure,
is sort of how we pick these things.
sure, yeah, yeah. So, um, the simple way I can kind of give you a rundown, right?
Yeah,
Is what we'll do is we'll have a conversation with the building, and then we'll tour the property, and we'll get a good idea of like the lay of the land. And then
right.
usually what they'll do is they'll provide us with kind of like a floor plan.
Yeah,
So, you know what? I don't know if my internet is acting up. Can you see me?
yeah. It was acting up there for a second. It's okay. We won't
Uh-oh.
we won't ask you to. I know I didn't prepare you for this. I apologize. It just
It's
kind of
all good.
popped up as we were talking. So let's do this. So the living room we know has a $400 sofa in it, right?
Mhm.
And I just saw a red chair.
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
There's a flat screen behind you.
Mhm.
So are you installing that flat screen with the rack or with the mount and all that kind of stuff? Or is that what you're having them do?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we order all the furniture. These are completely blank. We
Yeah,
get, I mean, excluding the renovation.
right.
The interior designer will give us a list of everything to order. So then we order it. We get all the boxes sent to the building, and then we have a team bring up the boxes, break them down, and it's kind of like a category of two different types of people. We've got kind of like furniture builders, and then we've got handymen.
Yeah,
Handymen will do stuff like this: mount the
yeah.
TV, install electronic locks. They'll hang the photos on the wall, and then the building team will break down the boxes, throw the trash out, put together, these couches, these chairs, these stools, and then we stage everything, get it clean, get photographers in here, and boom.
So electronic locks are important because you have to be able to control access,
Hmm.
right? And you have to be able to give people codes so that when they show up, they can just put the code in and go.
Hmm. Exactly.
So so in the bedrooms, you've got a bed, headboard, frame, right? How
Hmm.
in the world, how many bedrooms is that?
This one's two, but
How in the
most
world
of them,
do you furnish a place for $4,000? I mean, I guess a
oh,
$400 sofa makes sense, right? But I mean, you've
yeah,
got silverware, you've got plates and cups and glasses and right?
system, like you
Yeah,
said, system. So I mean, a two bedroom, not for 4,000. I mean, but I will say this: before labor is included, the two units that we're furnishing down the hall right now,
yeah.
they're both one bedrooms. Before labor is included, we're able to get the budget down to about $4,500 or less per unit,
Wow, that's cool.
before labor. Now, once you include labor and cleaning, utility or not utilities, labor, cleaning, photography, and then the furniture building team, all that stuff, you're probably going to average about 7,000 a unit. But
Gotcha.
either way, this is after doing this time and time and time again, having a system in place, having a good interior designer that works within a budget, which of course, like our students and mentees have access to as well. So it's cool. It's ultimately about the name of the game is keeping expenses low.
Mhm. So apartment complexes are not typically gonna pass a regulation where you can't do short-term rentals.
Again, not legal advice, but oftentimes apartment complexes are in high rises, which are located in the commercial areas of the cities. And in the commercial areas of the cities, they're usually less regulated because hotels are here too.
There's
You know
your
what I mean?
moat.
So there you go.
There's your moat, right?
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay. So you know that I'm writing a book on the power of questions.
Yeah.
What's your single favorite question to ask a landlord when you call them to try to get them? By the way, do you make the calls or does somebody else?
We do. Now at this point, we're 2 years down the road. A lot of these are coming from the relationships that we've built now. So
Sure.
I'm doing a lot less of the cold calling. But single favorite question to me is just what would you want this partnership to look like? Like, what do you want this partnership to look like? Because once they open up about that, then you have a really good idea of what to focus on to kind of
Yeah.
move things forward.
And what's important to them,
Exactly.
right? Okay. What's the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have?
I guess what's the next move?
Okay.
Um, and I'm assuming you want me to answer that.
Yes.
The next move is we've generated the cash flow, right? We've built
Yeah.
the portfolio, we've got the cash flow. Now that we've got the time freedom and location freedom and the cash flow, the next move is purchasing. So currently in the middle of, fingers crossed, closing on a bigger, more higher revenue short-term rental project that is in a more vacation rental type area. So I think that's the best of both worlds because you get the equity, you get the cash flow, you get a blend of everything. But I don't recommend that for people that have never done a short-term rental
Right.
before,
Yeah.
right?
You gotta cut your teeth somewhere, right?
Exactly.
So how many total units do you have now? 40?
Close to it. I think it's about 38, and I'm like blanking because we've got these two that we're launching now, and then we, like I said, some of them we divvied up like units with other people and stuff like that. So I want to say like we're probably at about like 40, 41.
Okay. Okay. So in the next 12 months, how many units are you going to accumulate? Because it sounds like that you did, is it 10 the first year?
No, close actually no, 21, and then by year 2 is when we crossed into the apartments a little bit. So I'll be honest, we're kind of limiting our expansion now because there's kind of like a law of diminishing return here, which is the bigger that you go. Like we know people, Mike, that do this model at scale, like big scale, like have like hundreds of units. And it's kind of like if you go that big, you're dealing with more headaches, and it's like it's just not even worth it unless your goal is to just build a hospitality business, right?
Okay.
So my point is I would use this vehicle to get to where you want to be,
Mhm.
generate the kind of cash flow that you're looking for so you get your time back, and then pivot into what you really want. So like most people don't do this for the dream of like building an Airbnb business. They do this for just the dream of getting their time back and the freedom. And then once you get your time back and the freedom, they pursue something that they really want.
Yeah.
And that's my advice is like, unless you want to grow a massive hospitality business, um, just use this vehicle to get to where you want to be. And then from there, you focus on what you really want to focus on. Make
Yeah.
sense?
Whatever your life's mission is, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So what's your goal for the end of next year?
Um, I think the goal for the end of next year is to, I think, build another solid foundation of new entrepreneurs that dive into this world. Like the successes, the people that do this for the first time and get results. Like I think we want to make an impact on those that are looking to break into the world of building an online business slash real estate. So we want to continue to do that. We've made a lot of progress on that front on the coaching side, and we want to continue to do that. We want to grow our coaching business and impact more people.
Do you ever get into business with your coaching clients?
We have. There have been some big opportunities like a building that offered. We have a video on it on our YouTube channel. We took on 36 apartments in a building in Philly. It's this building, or I'm sorry, it's across the street, but we took on 36 units, but we didn't take all 36. We split them up with some of our clients. So some of them took 9 of their own, 8 of their own, 9 of their own, etc.
Oh,
And it's not the first time that we did that. So yeah, it's now listen, I know some people hear that and they're like, oh, that sounds so cool. I want to do that. But those are few and far between those opportunities. We just did another one recently, but it's like once in a blue moon those happen. I think it's super cool. I love that like I can just offer the opportunity to somebody
mhm.
else without them really having to do the heavy lifting. So occasionally that pops up.
Can you imagine a world where now that you're in the process of buying, right? Fingers crossed.
Mhm.
Can you imagine a world where you have other investors that get involved with you on the purchasing side?
Um, yes, I actually would. I would love to get into the world of buying multifamilies, like
Okay.
buying like apartment complexes and syndicating opportunities where we bring in investors. Now, I haven't learned that world yet. I don't know too much about it outside of just the research and listening to content on it and things like that. But I haven't done it yet. So I personally would love to do that. I think that's kind of the next big move for me down the line
Gotcha. Okay.
in real estate.
So here's the final question.
Sure.
Where are you headed from here in 5 years? So in 5 years, where are you? Perfect world.
Yeah. I'd like to build a real estate empire. I would really like to pivot into bigger, larger opportunities. And not because I don't like this world, it's just that this world was the first step,
Yeah.
right? Which is another reason why I like teaching it, is it's
Mhm.
the first step.
Yeah.
So I'd like to pivot into bigger opportunities. I like deals. I like collaborating with other people, making deals, negotiation, etc. So I would like to take these skills and leverage them into those opportunities. I think it would be so cool. Um, Outside of that, I think just finding more ways to be present in life and just enjoy the company that I have and the people that I have around me.
Are you
Um,
still in the Philly area in 5 years?
no, no, I'm good. My plan is to move out of the Northeast, Mike. At least experience some new parts of the country, just to. I think it's important to get an environment change.
Mhm.
You know, when I did medical device sales, I took on a territory in Long Island, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. And when I was out there, I loved it just because it was a
Mhm.
new environment. There was different energy, and I think it's important to do that regularly.
Yeah.
I think it's important to like get new perspective, and then also it's just a different energy. Your environment's everything.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been a lot of fun.
Likewise, this was super super cool, and I can't thank you enough for having me.
Let's tell people the bundle real quick again. So there's a
Sure.
bundle available to them. They need to DM you. They need to go to Vinny. What is it? Vinny Airbnb?
Yes. So hold on, I think I'm losing you again.
Yeah.
So it's my Instagram is Vinny VINNY BNB,
Oh,
and
B&B. Sorry.
yeah, like
I
Airbnb.
apologize. B&B.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Vinny B&B, they just need to DM you and they need to DM you with the code MLE25.
Yes, sir.
MLE25. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Great to meet you.
Hey, likewise, Mike. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called newcalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. Newcalm.com. And the promo code is Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.